Okay, I want to do a bit of a sikum on the 10th and the 11th. Really the 11th we didn't completely learn yet, but the 10th. But again, the pasuk is a pasuk we're all very familiar with. We spoke about it a lot. Tit'en emet li'Yaakov, Chesed la'Avraham. Mishpat and Tzdek. And I have a regesh. I don't mean to say anything bad. I just have a regesh that if you're not sophisticated here with the terminology, specifically Kabbalistic terminology, that you missed the point here. In this, Derech Klal, like I once heard from a gadol that there's two svarim that are learned as Musar svarim. And they're really not Musar svarim, they're really deep treatises in Kabbalah. And one of them is the Devorah. The Ramak was Yadua, it was the Mekubal Ador, the Rebbe of the Arizal. And every word here is Kabbalah, which I certainly don't have any kesher to, but it's important to realize the backdrop that every word that he's saying is Kabbalah. He was a Mekubal, and how he brought it down to a practical place. So it's probably kedai to learn it with to understand his terminology clearly. The other sefer is the Mesilas Yesharim. The Mesilas Yesharim was the Ramchal. So he was like Mekubal Hador, but he was banned from teaching Kabbalah. So he wrote the Mesilas Yesharim instead. And the Gedolim, starting from Rabbi Yaacov, said that every word of it was Kabbalah. It was like he pulled a fast one on the generation. They banned him from teaching Kabbalah, so there's no Kabbalah per se. It was all Kabbalah. So if you,
why is he banned from teaching Kabbalah?
Why was he banned from teaching Kabbalah? Because his Kabbalah was different than the Arizal, and they viewed him as a Shafsite Svinik. Ramchal is very controversial in his Kabbalah. The story of the Ramchal is that he went to when he was 14 years old, he was accepted into the University of Padua, which was the only university in the world, I believe, at that time. University of Padua. After that, universities went to England, Oxford, but at that time, University of Padua, Sorbonne, but the University of Padua was the original university that he had to. It was very difficult to get in there, particularly if you're Jewish. It was very difficult, but he was such a genius that the Galileo went to the University of Padua. Gedolei went to the University of Padua, and there were 6 Jews in the University of Padua, and the Ramchal gathered them together. He was 14, so like I don't know if they had high school, but he didn't graduate. That's for sure. So he gathered together the 6 Jews that were in the university. And he said to them that the Jews are going through a tremendously difficult time, and if we learn together, we can make a tikkun and save the world. So he learned with these 6. One of them was the Moshe David Valley. We know who they were. So and he learned with them, and from that came out the Klach, Shari Chachma, and different sort of the Ramchal, where he was Megala Giluyim, unbelievable Ad Kadei Gilui Eliyahu, that he said, which created suspicion and everybody in the generation, but the things that he wrote were solid. It's not like imagination he wrote it, but he made it up. Like it's all solid, based in Chazal, based in Zohar, based in. It was clear somehow or another. It was absolutely clear. Rayas loved us. He was the clearest of all the Mekubalim of anything, and the most muchach of them all. But a few months ago, I was in Venice, so I decided I want to go to Padua, because I really wanted to go to the kever of the Abarvanel, who's buried in Padua, and the Barricades. But I was walking down the street in Padua, in Italy, and from across the street there, it's like a completely Goyish town, Padua. It was refreshing to see, after being in Venice for 3 days, it was refreshing to see like dry land, seeing sexual sidewalks and cars and things like that. But anyways, across the street there's this yeshiva bacher, American guy. So he comes over, he sees me, a from guy, he comes over, you know what you're doing over here, So So I said, a little bit, yeah, what's going on? So he said, oh, okay, where you go? So I said, I'm right now walking over to the University of Padua. So he says, why? So I said, because I want to go feel the energy of the place that the Ramchal learned. So he's thinking for a minute, he says to me, he always heard that the Ramchal was controversial. He never knew why. Now he understands. He went to college. Pshita like.
Yeah, he might have had a job also.
He worked. he was like you. He was an ophthalmologist, an eye doctor. Then at the end, he was a lens grinder. That's all they would let him do. He was in such chayrim that he was a lens grinder. That he came to Eretz Yisrael, and he died at a young age, 39 and a half years old. Probably one of the greatest contributions in Jewish history. He said before he died that his 40 years, he said he's going to die. He said this when he was like 20. He said he's going to die at 40 because his job in this world is to be mashlim the first 40 years of Rabbi Akiva before he was learning Torah. So he says, I'm his 40 years in a Gilgal, and that's why he's buried in Tveria, right next to Rabbi Akiva. He said, bury me right next to Rabbi Akiva because that's my...
You were just there.
Yeah, that's why he's buried there. That's the Kesher. The Kesher he himself made years and years before he wrote this when he was in Amsterdam, healthy, fine, not knowing. He said he wants to go to Eretz Yisrael, he'll die at 40. He wants to be buried next to the Ramchal. It's Shlit'a Devorah. He's one of those that after he Achrei Ma'is Kedoshim, he lived a life of terrible near death. It was a terrible near death, but somehow the Ramak was. B'chal, by the way, the Italian Mekubalim were not accepted into the elite Kabbalah theater, which was in Tzfas. Like all the Talmidei Arizal, everyone tried to get to Tzfas, and at Tzfas because they later on, I'm talking about the 16th century, they either rejected or they rejected most of them because you're not the real thing, and you're not Talmud the Arizal, and you don't have the real Messiah. It was like the brisk of Kabbalah. That was the. So that's the. But we're not learning Ramchal. That's just information. But the Ramak. So he wrote the Mesilas Yesharim to cover up his Kabbalah, but it's all Kabbalah. The same thing as the Devorah. So here we're learning the pasuk of Titei Emes Li'Yakov, Chesed L'Avram, pasuk that we all say, we all know. But we don't. I think most of us don't understand what's the even simple Hebrew mean. Titei Emes Li'Yakov, who we're saying to Hashem, you should give Emes Li'Yakov. If we always learn from there, the limud seems to be that Yaakov was an ish Emes, but that's not what the pasuk says. Chesed L'Avram. Avram Avinu was a Baal Chesed. That's not what the pasuk is saying. It's a tefillah that Micha spoke out to Nevuah, where he said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Titei Emes Li'Yakov. You give Emes to Yaakov. It's a tefillah. It's not a. It wasn't a. It was a tefillah and a shevach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So this is all about Hashem. It's not about
a statement of fact.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It was about what he was. That wasn't the Nekuta. Yet, like the simple way to learn it is that Yaakov, was the semel of Emes, and Avram Avinu was. So, first question is just to make a sikub out of what we've been learning. What does it even mean? Titei Emes Li'Yakov Chesed Avram. Second question is what happened to Yitzchak in this equation? He doesn't get an honorable mention by Micha Hanavi. Third question is why does it go upside down? Avram Avinu came before Yaakov. So Chesed L'Avram, Emes Li'Yakov. Fourth question is that we spoke about is that Yaakov seems to have been the pashtus for whatever reason. We don't question him because he's one of the avos, but doesn't seem to be the symbol of Emes altogether. Yaakov is the one that lied to Yitzchak. Yaakov was the one that lied to Lavan. Yaakov was he was a handler a bit. So I'm not losing any respect for Yaakov here, but to say that he was the Bita of Emes is a shver. It's a little bit difficult to understand. So what I started to explain, and I want to explain fully, is what is Emes? Tit'en emes li'Yaakov. And if you look at the words of the Torah Devorah, he says, let's just read it together for a second. Mida zuhu sheyesh b'Yisrael ba'ala. Klal Yisrael has a ba'ala. What's the ba'ala? Klal Yisrael, we're the B'nai Yaakov, we're B'nai Yisrael. I forgot to turn on.
You did turn it on, that one off.
Must not be. You'll send me a text.
Should have plugged in.
We already missed it, so I'll take this text. Thank you. Plugs it in on my Midazu Hishiyesh B'Yisrael Milo Oisam Habeinonim She'enam Yoidim Lisnai Lifnim Mishuris Hadin. Again, the Lashonos here are fascinating. There are Beinonim. Was Yaakov a Beinoni? He was a Beinoni. A Beinoni sounds like an average dude. Oisam Habeinonim She'enam Yoidim Lisnai Lifnim Mishuris Hadin. Heim Hanikroim Yaakov. And the reason is because they're going with emes. So this whole sentence is muksha. The Beinonim are called Yaakov. Yaakov is tzaddik. The Beinonim are called Yaakov. And why are they called Yaakov? Or why are they only Beinonim? Is because she'enam misnagim Elohim hanhaga amitis. Because they're always going with emes.
It's nice to the pasuk of lo yachlo Devorah shalom. The brothers couldn't speak. They couldn't flatter.
They weren't diplomatic.
Yeah, because it wasn't bitoch kanayim etalomit.
So they were more emes, maybe you say. Gam HaKadosh Baruch Hu yesh lehem midas emes shehaltzan mitzius hamishpat hayashar. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes emes too. So here the introduction to this is midas zu hi sheyesh b'Yisrael maila. Yisrael has a maila that they're going on the derech of, that they're not going out lefinim mishuris hadin, and that's what Yaakov is, and they're only going with hanhaga amitis. Hanhaga amitis means, like, what does that mean? It means that like the good thing to do is to wear a chayes for women to wear their sleeves until here. But this one wears it exactly on the cut over the side. That's the emes. That's the halacha. Right? So what's the big thing about that? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu will go with you on emes also. So you get to sit right on the edge. What's the baila here, b'chlal, that we're trying to learn? So it's important to understand the following: that when the Rabbak says emes, and the Rabbak says is going to use the word, or uses the word, when he says emes and he says the word mishpat, and the word most important, the key word, the operating word here in this paragraph is yashar. So when it comes, he means something completely different. Elohim hamisnagim ba'olam b'yosher, HaKadosh Baruch Hu misnagim ha'em be'emes. So we think of yosher as be a straight person. Sisa ha'yosher v'ha'tov. Just do the right thing, which is true. One should do the right thing. Sisa ha'yosher v'ha'tov. But yosher means something much more. And it all comes from Yaakov. If you look, I just go through the chart just to make it a little bit easier to explain. So here you have, this is the typical chart that everybody's used to seeing. So you have Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, Malchus. The way it always goes is Avram is Chesed, Tit'en emet li'Yaakov Chesed la'Avram. Yitzchak is Gevurah, he's not in this pasuk. And Yaakov is Tiferes. So Tiferes is a different idea. So Yaakov was always worried. Everybody knows Al Tira Avdi Yaakov. Right? Yaakov was always worried. The Gemara says in Brachos Sheba Yigroim Hachet. Gemara asks, "What are you so worried about all the time, Yaakov? Look, Hashem promised you." He says, "Yeah, Hashem promised me, and I was worried Sheba Yigroim Hachet." So Rashi explains that Yaakov Vida wanted to go with Midas Hadin. Why do you want to go with Midas Hadin? It belongs to Yitzchak. Why do you always want to go with Midas Hadin? So what's important to understand here is that Avram was Chesed. Yitzchak was Chesed plus Gevurah. It wasn't a dependent concept. And Yaakov was Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet. Was a combination of the two. The segel over here, Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet. So that's the way it works. What does it mean? It means to say that there's, when we talk about, well, let me just say the end before I say the beginning. When we talk about being noyeg b'yosher, we talk about yosher. So what's the translation of the word yosher? Straight. Yashar. Yashar. So yosher in Kabbalistic terminology doesn't refer to acting straight, being like the English word straight. Yosher refers to this line. That's called the Kav HaYosher. The Kav HaYosher is not like a bus that goes to Yerushalayim. Kav HaYosher is the line that starts with Keser and goes down to Malchus. See, it's Yosher. Chesed is on the side, Avram's on the side, Yitzchak's on the side. Yaakov was Tiferet. So that means to say that Yaakov took on the Kav HaYosher, that he was not the emes of Yitzchak. He was an emes of Yitzchak that already had it in a backdrop of Chesed of Avram. So Yaakov was Tiferet, which is a form of emes, and he was an emes, which has in it Chesed and Gevurah, and it all equals up to Tiferet, which is a word for emes. Tit'en emet li'Yaakov really can say Tiferet Yisrael. It can also be like the Tiferet of Klal Yisrael. Now, it's very interesting that and he goes in the Kav HaYosher, which comes straight from the Keser. But the way the spheres work is that we needed to temper this Kav HaYosher to make it even better. From Tiferet, who was the favorite son of Yaakov was Yosef. So Yosef in the chart is Midas HaYisod. And the reason he was the favorite son is because he was going straight down to Midas HaYisod, which was the next step, if you will. And Yehuda was Malchus. So Yasu Shevet Mi Yehuda was Malchus, but we weren't ready for the Malchus of Yehuda. But Yigash Elav Yehuda means that Yehuda and Yosef had a confrontation. Are we holding by Mashiach ben Yosef, or are we holding by Mashiach ben David? Are we holding by Mashiach that comes from Yehuda, or are we holding by Mashiach that comes from Yosef? I'll explain. But all of them, the other brothers, became unimportant here, because what happened to Zevulun and all this story. The answer is that what we're discussing here is the Kav HaYosher of emes, and this is called emes. What it means on a practical level, then become impractical again. But what it means on a practical level is that there's emes and then there's emes. So there's emes, like the Gemara says, there's emes and there's emes la'amitai. Think of those words, emes la'amitai. It doesn't say more emes. There's emes and more emes. Emes la'amitai. So there's you see sometimes in a I've seen it myself in a Din Torah, like sometimes it's emes. If the Beis Din Paskins, it's emes. It's a new reality. So you have to listen to the Beis Din. And sometimes it's taka emes. Sometimes it really is emes. Meaning like, besides for the fact that I have to be noyeg with this emes, they have the siyata d'shmaya to come down to the real truth. I've seen Batei Dinim that did not have that koach. In other words, there was emes. You still have to listen to it al pi halacha, but it's emes. But it's not. It's din. It's Yitzchak. It's not emes la'amitai. It's not a din which is called Avram Avinu, because Avram Avinu Chesed. So let's explain for a moment. Chesed in the Midos refers to not kindness, but Chesed refers to expansion. Yisvashtus. Like when Hashem made the world, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu is completely expansive. There's no gvul at all. And when He's coming into the world, so there's a tzimtzum, and the tzimtzum is putting something infinite into something finite. That's what's going on in the Bria Sa'olam. So following that Seder was Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. That was the Seder Advar. The Seder Advar is that you have to have first the HaKadosh Baruch Hu dik, which is, but you see, when a person, when you put this at a human level, and that's why it can't be. You can't just be Avram. It's gewaldic that the tent is open on all four sides. That's the midah of Chesed. There's no gevul, no boundaries. But what happens when there's no boundaries is you can get one of two results. One result could be you could end up with chesed without boundaries, like unbounded chesed, which you could argue whether that's healthy or not. But the other thing you could end up with is killing people, because once you don't have boundaries, you don't have boundaries. To put it in a more psychological way, chesed is completely emotion. The emotions have no boundaries. Hollywood's based on emotion. This is everyone's killing everybody. Like everything is the West Side Story. Like everybody's killing somebody because I love her, she loves me, and he loves him. Like it's all about this kind of emotion. It's not probably something which was completely cerebral wouldn't sell very well. It's all wow, and then how to grab people into that emotion. So that's also chesed. It's a world of chesed. It's a world of it's mazkir that Rabbi Tzadok says that if you want to get if you want to find a big Baal tzedakah, somebody who really is going to give a lot of tzedakah, so you should look for a Baal taiva. Baal taiva, you would think, wants everything for himself. Why is he Baal tzedakah? Baal taiva doesn't have boundaries. I eat everything. I'll give to everything. I'll share. It's we've seen it. Like it's those sometimes, like you want somebody who's not like to be able to be yotzei begidroi and give what we need or even what he can't afford. Okay, I give, I take, I eat. It's a whole gender generosity is all part of chesed, but it's a double-edged sword in that sense. So you have to put in some din. Now Yitzchak represented din. And din is like what's right and what's wrong. It'd be the satin. It's the whole. I've explained many times that the whole akeda is named as such as that called the almost Shlit'a of Yitzchak. It's called the akeda. Akeda means what?
Binding.
The bonding, right? The bonding of Avraham and Yitzchak. So that what it was, explains the Ramchal, was a mizug of Avraham and Yitzchak, which was going on peh al peh, einayim al einayim, as Chazal put it, that my midas hachesed has to go into you, Yitzchak, because you're too din. And you want to know something, Yitzchak? So watch my midas hachesed. I'm ready to give up my son. There's no boundaries here. Everyone, what kind of chesed is that? Kill yourself. It's boundaryless. That was the point. There's no boundary to how much I believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and how much I'm going to follow what he says. It's not about that this was a ma'aseh chesed. That's crude. That's superficial to touch it that way. I want to show you, Yitzchak, what it means not to have boundaries. So a little bit of Avram went into Yitzchak, but even more important maybe was a bit of Yitzchak went into Avram. Because this was the binding that was taking place. That Avram and Yitzchak became not Chesed and Din, but Chesed Din.
Yitzchak is the ultimate boundaries. He's bound.
Yeah, ultimate boundary. But so Yitzchak showed Kilu there was a harkava of Midas Yitzchak to Midas Avram, and from Midas Avram to Midas Yitzchak. Comes out of this Yaakov. Yaakov is Tiferet, which is Titן emes li'Yaakov. But it's not the emes that we say, we'll just tell the truth and let the chips fall where they will. The emes of Yaakov was a combination, even better, of what Avraham and Yitzchak put together in the spiritual genetics of the Jewish people. So it means to say that his emes was emes la'amitai. His emes had a certain amount of chesed in it. So, what does that even mean? That I gave a mashal, I think, on Sunday, that two people are driving at 100 miles an hour, and the police would stop. One of them is a reckless teenager trying to show off, and the other one is a guy rushing because it's pikuach nefesh. He's got a chayla mesukah in his car. So they're both doing the same ma'aseh. So the emes is, you both get the same ticket, but the emes shebe'emes is that you can't be medaba echad l'hasheni. Probably any normal judge would not make a divyun between one or the other. Could be still wrong. Nobody's saying is that wrong, but there's a deeper emes over here. So what that means is, so that's the emes of the kav hayosher that we're talking about. You have to get back It's closer to Hashem. You see, it's straight up from Hashem. So Yaakov's Tiferet was the Chesed and the Gevurah put together. That's what we're talking about. This is called Emes, Aleph from one side, Tuf from another side, with the Mem in the middle. So it's called Emes on the one hand. It's called Tiferet. It's also called Mishpat, because a shofet has to be Emes Lamitai. So Mishpat. So look at the words of the Ramak over here. Gabal Kadosh Baruch Hu yesh lo midas emes shehaltzad b'tzius ha-mishpat ha-yosher. Because by Kadosh Baruch Hu there's mishpat, which is also on the kav ha-yosher, which is mishpat ha-yosher. So he brings here in my Devorah, he has a quote from the Ramak in a different place that he says, this is a Pardes Rimonim Shar Chof Gimel, so Sefer by the Ramak. Mishpat, the word mishpat, hakavona, din, biksas rachamim. Mishpat means din, imsas rachamim, omnam misnaig al kav hamitzua. All the time going on the middle line. So mishpat is not here with Yitzchak and din, right? Is not there with Avraham and Chesed. Mishpat's with Yaakov. So that's so Mishpat becomes another Shem Hanirdaf to Emes, and to the Midah of Tiferet. That's what Mishpat is. That's what Yosher is. So we have a number of synonyms over here. We have Emes, we have Mishpat, and we have Yosher. So when we're talking about Rachamim, interesting. So Rachamim is not Rachamim is not a midah that, Rachamim is only after din. Rachamim in the judicial sense is when I'm guilty, but have Rachamim because. Why should I have Rachamim? You almost killed somebody. Well, have Rachamim because that wasn't my kavanah. There's a deeper emes over here. So Rachamim can only come after the din. You have to have a din. Nobody goes to the judge before there's a verdict that says, can you have mercy? It's a giveaway. That's suicide. But after there's a psak din, and after he's makabel alayas hadin, okay, that's talking the din, I'm talking guilty, but have rachamim. What does that mean? Have rachamim? Judge, Your Honor, get to the kav hamitzua. Take it from din back to the emtsa, and put a little bit of Avraham Avinu in this also. That's what the mercy is. Look at the whole. The other word for this is tzedek, or tzedakah.
So Amunah recognizes it's all from Hashem. I mean, you wouldn't have sowed without it.
You couldn't have, right. Let's talk about tzedek. But tzedek tishbait, esavi secha. Tzedek tirtay. Melech ohev, tzedakah uvishpat. So tzedakah goes with mishpat. And when we say tzedek tirdoif, the side of the two, to double the repetition of, could have just said tzedek tirdoif. Tzedek tirdoif is called, says the Gemara, hadad din emes le'abitai. So, but tzedek tishbait is abisecha, tzedek tirdoif. So, but tzedek tirdoif, I'm sorry, but tzedek tishbait is abisecha, the Gemara says, is not only a din for a shofet, but tzedek tishbait is abisecha is a din for everybody, that you have to be down l'kav schus. So to be down l'kav schus means, the way we always say it is to give people the benefit of the doubt.
So, I mean, what lifnim mishor sadin is that not doing the din.
Lifnim min hadin.
Right, if we say somebody's going to lifnim, he's not doing what.
Right, it's extra din, extra halacha. That's exactly what he's saying. In other words, he's not talking about somebody who's not going lifnim mishor sadin, meaning I'm only going exactly halacha. Adrabah, like here's the din, but now let's put into this cholent.
Because he realizes it's
right. There's background here. There's rekat. What is the rekat to this chet that's going on? So this is only a very deep thinking person. So when we say give somebody the benefit of the doubt, I think it's not incorrect. Benefit of the doubt sounds to me like, okay, there's there's a suffix. Did you do it? Did you not do it? Let's assume you did. Okay. There's a possibility you didn't do it, so let's assume you didn't do it. Right? Let's give the person the benefit of the doubt. But tzedek tishbot is
beyond that. It's looking beyond that.
Way beyond. Maybe you did do it. Maybe you even admitted that you did it. Is that a question of what the Maisa was? It's a question of what the Kavanah was. So B'tzedek Tishbot is Hamisecha is to mix listen to it, B'tzedek Tishbot, Mishpat. It's Hamisecha. When you're judging people, this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu telling Moshe, when you're appointing judges, teach them this. That B'tzedek Tishbot is Hamisecha is not to be just to say the letter of the law. The side of B'tzedek Tishbot is Hamisecha is you have to look at the Godskite of the whole situation over here. So from there we learn being down l'kav shchus means to say that if you're looking at somebody who's doing something wrong or who's acting in a peculiar way or in a way that gets on your nerves, so take a look at the background. It doesn't mean that it makes it right. We're not talking about making it right. It doesn't have a halachic ramification, but it's important for a judge, if we're in a position of judging, to look at the background. I always give this mashal, like when I dealing with a lot of people, Baruch Hashem. So I always love when I get to meet somebody's like father. I didn't why because then I understand the whole shleimus of the Indian. Like I thought you're walking funny because you're a jerk. I see your father walks like that too. I thought when you see a certain personality that goes through the generations. So there's a background to this behavior. It's not just somebody who's annoying or a balgaiva or once there's a background, it doesn't change the reality of the situation. But what it does is it gives you background. So now you have B'tzedek Tishbot, everything you can understand. This is the because I always say about myself, so not just that I come late to davening. My father came late to davening. My grandfather, my great grandfather. Like this is it doesn't make it right. This is understand it for what it is. Kacha said, like this is go with it with mishpat b'tzedek or b'mishpat.
You saw it with Yosef when he forgave his brother. I mean, he looked at his brothers who did wrong to him. He went beyond that. Right.
Well, this is what we spoke about Sunday, right. That when Yosef judged his brothers, he said, Elikim, lo yatem you didn't bring me here. Hashem did. So that Bashert gave a different background. That's the ultimate background. But what I'm saying is even on an easier level, if you will, like there's this idea of Emes. So the thing is like this, that if you look at Tanakh, so Shaul was a melech before David was a melech. Now Yaakov Avinu already said, well, Yasu Shevet mi Yehuda, and Shaul wasn't from Shevet Yehuda.
Mm-hmm.
So why what was the Havamina? And the Taka didn't work out. What was the Havamina for Shaul to be the melech Yisrael? It wasn't Yehuda. It was Keneged Halacha. It was Keneged the Birchas Yaakov. But the pshat is that Shaul was the Midas HaChesed. Shaul was the Midas HaChesed, which is why he wasn't able to kill the people for Amalek. It wasn't something that he could do. We're learning Tillim at night. So in Mizmar Shigoyen LeDavid, on the shir that he's saying, Al Kush Ben Yemini. Kush, says Rashi, is Shaul Ben Yemini from Shevet Binyamin. So say Binyamini. What's Shaul Kush Ben Yamin? So the answer is because Yamin. You see, this is the right side is the side of Chesed. So Shaul came from the Midah of Chesed. So since Shaul came from the Midah of Chesed, so you need, on the one hand, you can't be the Melech, but on the other hand, you need Avram before you get to Yitzchak and Yaakov. So in the Seder Hadvarim, it's almost like the Seder of Bria. You have HaKadosh Baruch Hu being complete Hispashtus, and then after that you need Tzimtzum. So you have to have Shaul before you have David. And David, you see, even though he was being pursued to be killed by Shaul the whole time, he was always going with the biggest covet to Shaul. Because, Adonai HaMelech, Hu Asher Moshach Hashem, he acknowledged the fact that this was like, as much as and this is such a Musar Haskell for us, because these mitos will be at war with each other. The Yamin and the Small, literally, is literally at war with each other. At the same time, they're both necessary to be able to carry it. So David Abel recognized that, okay, I'll kush ben Yamini, but time to go further. So David Abel spoke, if you know how to read the Tehillim correctly, he spoke constantly about the fact that he's from Shevet Yehuda. And there's somebody, Shiftecha u'b'shatecha heba yirachamuni. So Shevet is what? A stick you hit somebody with. A Mishpat is what? Something you rest on. They're opposites. Shiftecha u'b'shatecha. So it was what David Abel said, heba yirachamuni, I can take the two midos of Mishpat, which is Chesed, and Shevet, which is Din, and I can put them together. Hey, I can have the perfect reason. The David Abel, a strange person, because it's like, oh, it's strange that such Chesed on the one hand that he can kill on the other hand. This is the Melech Yisrael. You take, for instance, this is really the essence of Jewish leadership, in my opinion, to be able to not lose your din, not lose your chesed, and have a larger gestalt than all of that, which is a perfect tiferes of chesed and gevurah. This is the ultimate Jewish leadership. Anytime a leader will be noitel l'tzad echad, that he won't be al kav hayosher. He won't. But vayishma Yisrael vayishurun. That was the yosher. The lashon Yisrael was a lashon of yosher, kav hayosher. It's referring to the kav hayosher. So Zadavi Asisa Yosher Atoy. It's being able to combine these things. You find the Kabino by Mordechai. So Mordechai, Ish Yehudi, Ish Yemini. So Gemara says, Yehudi, Yemini. What's going on over here? So you had, like Mordechai was on the one hand, it was a tremendous kanoi. Mordechai, like Parsha Rimenu Sanhedrin, the Sanhedrin didn't even hold with him. He was like such a kanoi, like Mordechai. It was like real. I mean, it was real Be'esharm stuff. This is Mordechai. On the other hand, he was Ish Yemini. He had a chut shel chesed, and had a different side of him too. So Mordechai was able to be a leader for the Jewish people in Shushan, because what the leadership that you needed was not just, and it couldn't be just Esther. Esther was chut shel chesed. She had a chesed. It was all about chesed, and it couldn't be all about din either. In order to fight Haman, you needed to have this homogenation of chesed and din. And you find also, for instance, that the Kohanim, so where's a Kohen come from? What side are they on the chart? Obviously from chesed. They come from Aaron. Aaron was Ish Chesed, Oyev Shalom, Roidev Shalom, Oyev Sabrius. Moshe was din. So this is the chesed and the din. The Kohanim, mitzad chesed, could be chashmonaim. They're the ones that can be yotzei megidram. They can move out of their boundaries. They have no boundaries. And quote Hashem as being mischalel, and on the one hand, they could be the benevolent Kohanim, and on the other hand, they could kill the Greeks, take on the Greeks, because they didn't know any boundary. Anybody with any seichel wouldn't take on the Greeks. Take on the Greeks. It would be like, it's like Micronesia taking on America. It doesn't make any sense. You don't take on the Greeks. But if you don't have any boundaries, you take on the Greeks. You don't have any boundaries. You're not afraid of dying. You're not afraid of killing. You're not afraid of doing chesed. You take on the Greeks. On the other hand, they made themselves into kings, and you ended up with the Hasmonaim empire. You have the kings. They were disaster as kings. A terrible disaster. A disaster ruchnius, a disaster politically. They're killing each other. Kohanim can't be kings. Just like Shaul can't be a king. A king has to be Malchus Beis David. So the first thing that happened when the Chashmonai era ended was Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Okay, so he's a Nachan. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi came from Shevet Yehuda. Hillel. These were the Gedolim, the Hillel. These are all coming on the Kav HaYosher and the Kav HaMsai. So here's the Kuda over here. So there's a lot of things here. You have to have, just one last thing, you have to have, the way the chart works You have to have Yisoid. In the Kav HaYosher, we're looking for Malchus. Malchus is when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is integrated and permeated into the world completely. This is what Malchus is. That's the Malchus. This is the Malchus David. A complete permeation requires both Chesed and Din, and it's the Malchus of Mashiach. So that's Mashiach ben David, where everything becomes the world of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the Malchus. This Malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why does Mashiach ben David have to be preceded by Mashiach ben Yosef? Why is the Kav HaYosher, why do we need Yosef first? Yisod.
Same reason Shaul came first.
So then you need Chesed. But even once you're into the Kav HaYosher, you need Yosef before David, Yosef before Yehuda. And in our times, Mashiach ben Yosef comes before Mashiach ben David. So the pshat is that it's all, there has to be two levels of permeation, because the whole thing with Malchus is Leis le migarmei klum. Malchus is empty. And on a Kabbalistic level, Malchus has nothing. If I'm about Malchus, if I'm a melech, so I have to have nothing. Everything belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A Malchus shalchahi. Lo me'atim lech b'chavod. It's Haya Hashem lemelech al kol haaretz. So what's the Malchus? So the Malchus, says the Lashon of the Zohar, is leis le begarmei klum. The minute I have something in it for myself, there's no Malchus. So Malchus is all about giving up that which I have. What are you giving up? You're giving up Yosef Haya b'Mitzrayim. Giving up everything. So you have to have Yosef before you have Yehuda. You have to have so you have to have the Shnas HaRaivud before you have the Shnas HaSova, and you have to have the permeation into Egypt in order to permeate. Then Klal Yisrael gives it up by becoming Avodah in Mitzrayim. It's going from famine to feast to famine, because that's what we're talking about. That's the lashon of the Kav HaYosher until you have Malchus. It has to be that way. It's impossible that it shouldn't be that way. So how do you look at the times we're in? Has perforce become political? But what you can do with it whatever you want with it. What seems to be clear, it's just fascinating to put a pushpin on where we are in the timeline of history. But wherever you are, there has to be a Seder HaDevorah here. And the Seder HaDevorah has to have been throughout history. Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hoy, Yisoid, which were clearly what's going on in Eretz Yisrael is Midas HaYisoid, which can come to the Midah of Malchus.
When he says here that the Yosha the emes is that combination of
Chesed and Gevurah.
Chesed and Gevurah.
Absolutely.
That's the emes.
So let's just furious here. So we're saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at us not with Chesed, not with Gevurah, not with Din, but with Yaakov emes, Tiferet. So what does it mean? It means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is looking at us with a truthful eye combined with a backdrop of Avraham Avinu. Okay, you did something wrong, but why'd you do something wrong? Are you a Tzedek Shadishba? Are you Ein Adam Nitfas B'Shas Tzarai? Are you B'Tzar? Have you not managed with the Yisurim that I've given you? Is your environment the wrong environment for growth? Now, it can't be wrong, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did it, but it does help explain. A person has Bechira Chavshis, does help explain and enlightens the sentence, if you will, when you see the greater emes. This was the Yaakov. Yaakov was not an ish emes. Yaakov lied to Yitzchak, but there was a greater truth. And understand the background over here. I'm talking about the whole future of the Jewish people. My mother sees it. When he lied to Lavan, he's talking about a whole building, an unfolding of history. So, on the one hand, Yaakov was always afraid of this. The Metzias is, if you're talking about Din, I'm afraid. If you're talking about Yitzchak and Avram combined, I'll tear out the Yaakov. Al tira Avdi Yaakov. So you don't have to be afraid because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, I will take care of you because I see the greater emes. So how does it apply as the Torah Devorah to us? So you're looking at a person, or you're looking at a group of people, or a whole population, a whole world of people. But tzedek tishmai tasabisecha means to say that you can look at somebody with emes and go with midas hadin. It's a very pedantic view. This is wrong. But is it right to say that it's wrong? First of all, usually when you're just saying something is wrong, you're pushing the person away, and you're making a wrong more wrong, right? You're usually even hurting yourself because you're making a pirut. This is the sinas chidduv that goes out. On the other hand, if this Torah is saying, if you would take the kav hayosher, then you wouldn't go with Chesed of Avram, which is everything's beautiful, then you become like a hippie. You don't go with din, then you become whatever. I don't want to say any racial slurs. Then you become Yitzhak. It's all about Tiferes, and Tiferes is v'tzadkeinu b'mishpat hamelech hamishpat. Tzadkeinu b'mishpat hamelech, which is a combination of tzedakah and mishpat, which is in the lashon of the Torah, mishpat hakavana din mu'urav b'ksas rachamim. Shehu b'snaig al kav hamitzua, which is the kav hamitzua. So we're talking about go with yashar. Vasisa hayashar v'hatov. The mitzvah of vasisa hayashar v'hatov is to look yashar, meaning to look with tiferes of chesed and din, to look with Avram's eyes and Yitzchak's eyes. After the Akedah, they came together. They were akud. They came together. It was all bound up together. So if we're looking with those eyes, so just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu we're davening tzadkeinu b'mishpat, so the emulation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is to look at each other with put a little bit of Avraham in the Yitzchak, and to mix up the Avraham, the Yitzchak, and then to come up with a Yaakov, which is called. So this changes everything. That Oisam ha-beinonim. Beinonim doesn't mean, that's why the vocabulary is so important. Beinonim doesn't mean the average guy. That's not what a Beinonim means. Like there's this, there's that, there's the average guy, middle of the road. That's not what it means. A Beinonim means that he's on the Kav HaYashar. That's what the Ramak means in all of his Torah. But he says Beinonim. You're Bein this or that. You're not Chesed, you're not Din. You're Beinonim, you're Tiferes. So Osam HaBeinonim she'einam yodim lisnaig lifnim mishur zadin. They're not only in the Kav of Avram Avinu. Hey nikroim Yaakov mipnei she'einam misnagim Elohim hanhaga mitis. They're not going lifnim mishur zadin, which is Avraham. They're not going with pure din, that's Yitzchak. They only know to go with emes. And emes is when the two things come into one. Gam HaKadosh Baruch Hu yesh lemidas emes. She'altzad mitzias ha-mishpat, ha-yasher. That's what mishpat is. That's what yasher is, the kav ha-mitzua. The straight line that goes from top to bottom. That's the tzad ha-yasher. And people that are knowing b'yosher, this is the real Jew and the real leader, that you can look b'yosher, go on a straight line, which is Keser, which is Tiferes, which is Yesod, which is Malchus. That's the Kav HaYosher. HaKadosh Baruch Hu misnagim mahem be'emes. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu will look beyond their actual deed to look at the whole background of what's going on, and that changes everything. Once you understand the background, it changes everything. You see, I gave a mashal last week that you see the Chazon Ish, the Gadol, the Chazon Ish, the Gadol, so bush, I would have met the Chazon Ish, seen him even from a distance. such a Gadol every time I learned the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish took a world that was divided between tzaddikim and rishayim, those who kept Torah, those who didn't, and even when I was a kid, the type of people I grew up with, the shul I grew up with, is if somebody wasn't a Shomer Shabbos, throw him out of shul. They don't let him into the minyan. There was no, we're gonna break bread with you, we're gonna make l'chai with you, you're gonna down for the oven, next thing you go out on the liyah. Like, no way we want you to shul. The Chazon Ish came along, he reinvented the term Tinuk Shenishba. And although he's not given credit for it, started the Baal Tshuva movement with one tshuva, and you're a day on Hilchos Shlit'a. A Tinuk Shenishba means, hey, take a look. Is this guy a bad guy? Or is there a background here? Is there a reason? Was he nishma ben agoyim? Was this environmental? This changed the whole Haredi world around. The whole Haredi world was able, and everybody was a Haredi at that time. Who wasn't a Haredi? Chafetz Chaim was a Haredi. Chaim Brisker was a Haredi. Who wasn't a Haredi? Everybody. Rav Kook was a Haredi. No question in my mind, Rav Kook was a Haredi. But he changed everything because he was able to say Tinnik Sh'nishma, and Tinnik Sh'nishma means I'm looking at you not just with Yitzchak's eyes, but I'm putting some Avraham Avinu into the eyes also. So therefore I have Tiferes. I'm coming with Tiferes. And that can bring to your side into Malchus. That's how that whole thing works. So there's so much you can do on a communal level or on an individual level, on a marriage level, just by harchivi b'koy ma'alech, just by opening up the tent and getting out of the Chesed, which is no boundaries, which is a ridiculous place to be, dangerous place to be, getting out of Yitzchak, which is kuloi boundaries, pedantic, and getting into Yaakov, which is the Bidon Tiferes.
Tzedek Tishpat Amitecha means really Tzedek means Chesed Tishpat Amitecha.
Well, with Chesed also. Tzedek is a combination.
Oh, so Tzedek is
and Mishpat. But Tzedek and Mishpat, same thing.
No, but what you're saying, with Tzedek Tishpat Amitecha.
Right.
But this Mishpat, which is Din, and the Tzedek is what? The Tzedek is
a combination.
Is it Tiferet?
Yes.
It's the combination.
Tzedek is Tiferes.
Oh, it's not just the Chesed.
No. Tzedakah, otherwise you have a contradiction in the word itself, because you're giving tzedakah, you're being charitable. But tzedek means din. So the answer is that it's right. On the one hand, it's tzedakah.
Tzedek and Mishpat, right.
Well, yeah, there's differences too, but we didn't get to it, but it's the same thing. They're both noita l'kav harachim. They're both combined.
It seems to me that Sarah was also in that place, Sarah Mena, because she was able to open her house up, and yet she threw out Hagar.
Yeah, but but there was a din there.
Yeah.
When it was Yishmael, there was a din.
Yeah.
But Avraham Avinu is kula chesed, so he could handle Yishmael. Yishmael was paradam. Paradam means, the word means, paradam, no boundaries. That's what the word means. The bad guy, which is no boundaries. Parad, like a prick. Parach, parats. You know, all the different Peiresh words. You know, Hirsch points out the paradam, person without boundaries. Okay. Could you send me the audio?